Hello, I'm Bloom, and welcome to my first speed paint with a voiceover. I thought that I would go over my process for making a rough sheet, and also make one for my character Lucian. Lucian is part of a made-up species of mine called Ariettis foxes. He plays the role of the main character's best friend and later his love interest. His backstory is that, as a kid, Lucian was an only child, but his parents only really paid much attention to him when they were introducing him to new people. They were extroverts, and he was sort of your stereotypical shy introvert. They liked having friends over and socializing, and they sort of forced that onto him without meaning to. A large part of how Lucian was brought up, and how he acts in general, is due to the pressure for Ariettis foxes to fit in and be happy, normal families. Unlike Sion, he tries very hard to seem normal to most people, and is good at it. Because of that, he has a lot of problems with communication and emotional honesty. As a child, he was a lot more shy and unassertive, but once he gets older, he ends up being more strong and silent and practical. Don't be fooled though, he still very much has a soft side. He just gets quietly salty and passive-aggressive when he's annoyed. He met the main character, Siam, when they were 9 years old. He saw them talking to Lucian's granddad and pretty much thought, oh my god, I need to get to know him. After that, they became best friends, and ended up knowing each other in ways no one else did. Also, Lucian had a bit of help from his granddad to actually meet him, because he was super shy. Sion and Lucian were really good, because they were each other's only true friend at their age, who they could open up around. And their opposite personalities often helped to balance each other out. They had problems, but they were still like peas in a pod. Later on, when Sion's mother dies, they drift apart, and it's very sad, but over the course of the book, they're more or less forced to spend time together, and it doesn't take too long for them to remember that they platonically love each other. And then that they not so platonically love each other. Now that I've sort of filled you in on Lucian's role over the book, let's start about the actual drawing process. Now, as you can see, I just start by building the basic shape of the character and filling that in to make a rough full-body sketch. I had a couple references of past drawings of this character, as well as one from the top left that, as it says on the drawing, is old. It was the first rough I ever made for this character, and it looks very different than he does now. This is mainly because back then, I really didn't focus on making my characters have diverse shapes, which is something I've definitely started to do now. In this video, you'll see a few different examples of Airy Fox designs, and they all look very different, especially the golden trio, which is Lucian, Sion the silver and mint one, and Triff the cream and pink one. I had a mental image of Lucian as soon as I made him, which was sort of tall and gangly, especially as a fawn, and with soft shades of blue and darker grays. When he's older, I sort of have him a bit more filled out to show that he's gotten older and stronger. He can hold his own, and is actually the best fighter of the three main characters, fun fact. After I have that full body sketch all done, I then move on to making some expressions. This can really help to show what the character looks like with different angles and expressions, and is good practice in general for when you have a character who you'll be drawing over and over. Now, as I might have mentioned earlier, Lucian has trouble with bottling his emotions and hiding them from everyone who isn't his grandfather or Sion, and near the beginning of the book, he ends up starting to hide from even him. So these expressions are sort of on the extreme ends for him, but it's good to see how diverse you can make different facial expressions while still having them look like they are of the same character, so I decided to make them situations where it would make him show expression. For example, the really peeved one could be where he's actually really pissed at Sion for ditching him for 3 years with no explanation. Or the terrified one could be where he sees Sion dazed and hanging by his tail from the mouth of a giant monster about to literally die. Spoilers, just kidding. But in all seriousness, I think it's a good idea to see just how expressive you can make your characters and stay on model. I sort of had to move everything around to get a place where I was happy with how it all looked, which is perfectly fine to do, by the way. You're still the one making the art. Use that transform tool to your heart's content. After all that, I quickly sketched out a full-body action shot to serve a similar purpose to the expressions, that being to show what he looks like when he's doing different things. Then I started inking the initial still full-body to become the full flat color reference, so I can use the eyedropper tool on him later and whatnot, and we again have a better idea of what he should look like. I didn't worry too much this time about making clean line art, but I like him this way too. I used the eyedropper tool on a previous drawing to get him to look the same and spent a bit of time on the rest of his body. As mentioned before, as soon as I put Lucian in the book, I had a rough idea that I wanted him to be blue and gray, and I also tried to make his colors look nice with Sion's. I gave him lots of gradients in his design to show his soft, cool nature, as well as to give him some distinction since that's not a feature I use on a lot of airy foxes. I fiddled a bit with his tail markings because I felt like the first version was a bit too much of a solid bright color in one place and drew attention away from his face, which usually isn't a good sign in character design. In the end, I made it mostly gray with a splash of color and felt better about it. Plus, his tail looks kind of similar to Sion's mother's. I found that mildly interesting because she and Lucien are by far the two most important people in Sion's childhood. Since Sion is the main character, I figured I could get away with making designs and such around their relationship with him. Most side characters exist to help the main character after all, and that includes Lucien. And that's all for this video. Here is the finished ref. I'm really happy with it, and I think it turned out well and was very much worth the slow and painful process. I'll definitely be using it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!